He went before a judge, a man by the name of Justice John Beverly Robinson, who was a man who was instrumental back in the rebellion of 1837 as a hanging judge. And James Donnelly was found guilty of murder and sentenced to be executed in September of that year, 1858. Johanna was expecting at the time. She had given birth by this point to 7 sons, and now she was going to getting ready to give birth to her last child, which turned out to be a girl. She was actually just kind of blown right out of the water. She came home here, and in the meantime she managed to get petitions signed asking for leniency for her husband. And when the time was right, she walked all the way up to Goderich, pregnant as she was, to present the papers to the powers that be. They heard her prayers of supplication, and they thought, well, here's a woman who is in the family way, and she already has 7 sons. They decided to commute his sentence from being executed to life imprisonment. Life imprisonment in those days was 7 years in the Kingston Penitentiary. The man who signed the commutation later became Sir Johnny MacDonald. James Donnelly went away to Kingston and didn't come back till 1865, and the real reason was she wasn't told that there was an election coming up, and they didn't want to alienate the Catholic vote. He went away to prison. She came back here, and with the help of a midwife and her brother-in-law, she gave birth to her last child, which was a girl christened Jane but called Jenny throughout her entire life. She was able to hold on to the property here. She had to mortgage it twice, once at 12% and once at 24%. A group of Bedolfers approached James Donnelly down in Kingston shortly after he went away and said, James, we know you only have 50 acres you're working to pay off, but we're setting up school sections. We'd like to know if it could have a quarter of an acre of your 50 acres in perpetuity here in order to build a school. And over here to my right, there's the remains of a schoolhouse that they built in the early 1860s. It was a wooden structure. It lasted until 1878 when it was destroyed by fire. It was replaced in 1878 with a brick structure on a poured cement foundation. And it lasted until the early 1970s when it was finally torn down. Many people who come up here and come along the road are mistaken when they feel that that is the site of the homestead. The homestead is here. That's the schoolhouse over there. It was known locally as the Donnelly Schoolhouse, but known legally as SS number 3, school section number 3, a Catholic schoolhouse that actually was in operation until about 1958 or 59. When James Donnelly got out in 1865, he came home here. He had rheumatoid arthritis and a bronchial infection, I guess, that just wouldn't quit. And between 1865 and 1870, he more or less recouped his health, and eventually he got, because he had been a freight handler and a carriage driver, a teamster in essence, he got involved in the stagecoaches. And in the early 1870s, he began a series of events which ultimately led to his death. This is James Donnelly I'm referring to, and some of his family members. In 1870, he instructed, or informed rather, Johanna. They said, we've outgrown this little Irish shanty. Shanty Irish no longer will we be. And in 1870, he hired a man by the name of Robert Thompson, a master builder from London, who came up and built them a new house. Let's go and take a look at that site now. In 1870, a man by the name of Robert Thompson, a master builder, was hired by the Donnelly family to come up and build a new house. This is the site here. There are 4 stones here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's one over here to my right. It was common practice in those days that you would put large field stones down. Thompson got the boys to help him get these big field stones, placed them here, and he built them an 18 by 26 hewn log cabin. The front door was located here, and inside there was no basement. There was a nice hardwood floor, but there was probably a 4 by 5 foot section of the floor that lifted up, and steps going down to an area that was hollowed out into 3 directions. This is where they put their root crop, their apples, potatoes, cabbages. Over here was a 1-inch board partition going this way, and then again this way, giving 2 small bedrooms. The back door was located in the center here. There was a stove located here where the depression is. I have a chunk of one of those stoves. And over here was a doorway that opened up You went upstairs to an unpartitioned loft. This was 1870. And then in 1871, Thompson came back and got 2 more field stones. One here and one over here, and built them a rather large frame kitchen, tacked it on the back of the house. Where the depression is located was another stove. There was a small master bedroom located here, and now the back door is located here. This is the site of the massacre that took place early Wednesday morning, February the 4th, 1880. And basically what happened was that in 1879, Father John Connolly became the new parish priest at St. Patrick's Catholic Church up the road here. And by the way, this is called the Roman line because so many Roman Catholics lived on it. When the new father arrived here at the church in the parish, he was met with a series of rumors and stories, various people in the community. They're telling him that there was a particular family in the community that was involved with stagecoaches, and there was a fair amount of violence. There was theft and arson. And he felt that, Father John Connolly felt that he'd like to talk with everybody in the parish. Now, the Donnelly family did not go to church at that particular Sunday, and when Father John Connolly came up the road a number of days later to meet everybody, the family dog here got a hold of him and scared him off. Father John Connolly then more or less depended upon these other neighbors and their stories, and they heard stories such as Mrs. Donnelly was in league with the devil, and her son with the cripple, the shriveled foot, he was the devil incarnate, and these people were just terrible. Things going on and on and on, and so many stories have been said, and they've all been blown out of proportion. Father John Connolly decided to introduce something that was not new. It had been used back in Ireland. He called it the Peace Society, whereupon he, as the spiritual leader in the community, introduces this concept by having the people at the church sign up, the men sign up, and the idea is that they would form a group and would go from house to house, farm to farm, searching for any stolen goods. Well, James Donnelly wanted to sign up, but his son William said, "Dad, if you do, our enemies will steal something, hide it in our barns, and unbeknownst to us, they'll come, we'll let them on the property since we've signed up, and they'll find it, and it'll give them an excuse to boot us out of the township." So by not signing up, James Donnelly more or less victimized himself. There was an episode where there was a cow that was owned by Mr. Thompson next door, and it went wandering, and they blamed the Donnellys. Eventually, the Thompsons discovered the cow on their own property back in their own bush. But that didn't really stop them from getting the wheels of their justice, so to speak, rolling.